Okay, so for those needing to catch up on the Photoshop assignments, this is the information sort of visually for the two Photoshop assignments we had, two different homework assignments. The first one was some very basic stuff, and it was basically find a picture, from Flickr or somewhere, make sure it's Creative Commons licensed or public domain. In this case, I have Yosemite National Park. You find a picture from online and you're going to caption it. This is what's called a lower third. You've probably seen these in every news broadcast, every TV show ever. Like if there's anyone that's being interviewed and their head is right here, and there's a thing that comes down that says so and so from whatever. Any interview show, late night, news show, all these things, they all use them. And the way that this was created was, I believe I actually just opened up the actual image and then started adding layers. You can also create something new. So you can go File, New, make sure you're using Film Video, make sure you're using HDTV, and it's 1920 by 1080. Keep the resolution at 72, and then you would hit OK, and it would create you something like this. Let me get rid of that. Obviously, I didn't do that because this is much wider than that. I'm sorry, not wider, taller. That other one was much more widescreen. So now what we need to do is add a box. My box looks like this. It's just using this rectangle tool, right? You would click and drag. I can undo that because I don't want a big pink box there. Any rectangle tool you have, if you select the actual rectangle layer, oh, I must have rasterized this. That's interesting. Oh no, I locked it. There we go. If your layer is locked, it won't give you your property options. But if it's not locked, which it shouldn't be, then you can see I have my options here. For my fill, which is this one, I had actually made it a gradient. Like I just chose like one of these random ones that was here. And then I changed the colors. Gradients are changed by you double click one caret and then you select a color that you want. Then you double click the other one, and whatever color you change it to, it's going to go to that, right? And then let's see here. They all start 90 degrees. I don't know why. But you just have to change it to 100, or I'm sorry, to 0, and it'll straighten it out so you get something like this. I also made it, I believe it's in each one of these. Oh, no. Oh, crap. Nope, we don't want you. We're going to drag you off. There we go. All right. So I actually did a gradient for the line too. This is the line for the outside. You don't need to do a gradient on that. I don't like mine. It looks silly. Like you can't even see it. Let's see here. And then the text is actually just the text tool. You take the text tool, you click anywhere, you start typing. You can't get out of the text tool unless you select another tool. There's no hotkey for that. The hotkey for grabbing the text tool is T for text. But otherwise, you have to click on something to get out of it. And I typed in that. And in order to select the font, actually, you can double click on the T. And, oh, it's locked. Everything's locked. You can double click on the T and on the layer, and it'll select all the type that was in there. And you can change the typeface afterwards. You can change the size afterwards. Don't go scaling it. You want to actually change this typeface. And one trick I like to use is to click here and hit up or down on the keyboard, and you can kind of just go through and you can see that they're all changing all the time. So you can look at them that way instead of trying. I mean, you can pull this down and you can kind of look, but I don't act, you can't even see some of these. They're very, very tiny. So I like to just select the whole thing and kind of go through and hit up and down on the keyboard till I find stuff I find promising. If you find one that's promising but keep looking, write down what it's called, because these names make no sense. You are not going to remember where to go. Moonbaran regular, or no, Moolbaran regular. No one's going to remember that. So write it down so that when you get all the way up to the top and you realize you like that first one, that you have written it down. Um, and just try and choose a typeface that you like the look of and a color that you like the look of. Just don't use, I'm just asking that you not have the default. So, I believe the default, I forget what it is in Photoshop, but you don't want to use the default. Don't use Comic Sans, please. That font has become a bit of a joke in the design world. Unless you have a really good reason to use it. And yeah, you just want to work on a little bit, kind of make it look nice. Try and add a little something, whether it's a border, whether it's changing up the color a little bit. You want to make sure this is kind of lined up nicely. That's a little better. It was too low before. You do not want to be close to the edge like this, right? We need to consider that everything should be a little bit further from the edge. Also, you don't want this and this to be, this close to the bottom. There are basically in design and especially with anything that's going to be video, the edges are kind of, or even if you print it, right? There's a trim. There's a little bit that maybe gets cropped up, and then you could maybe lose your text. So you just want to make sure you keep this in an area where it's always going to be seen. So that's Photoshop 1. And in order to hand it in, you would just, click Save. I have a locked file. Sorry. You can just click Saved, and then you can just hand in this PSD that you're saving to me. You don't need to flatten this. You don't need to make it a JPEG. In fact, I want to see these things. You can only earn more points by letting me see how you build something. The second thing we're doing is pretend this is a person, but all of you who were in class had your pictures taken. If you didn't, I suggest finding someone to take your picture in front of a white wall. But let me see. Here we go. So everyone had a picture where they're in front of the whiteboard. And step 1 is to get rid of the white around you. And then steps 2 and 3 are put yourself on some sort of background and add a few things, kind of like a self-portrait, like a silly self-portrait. It's okay to be ridiculous. The assignment stipulates that there must be 4 images at least, and one of them can be the background. We do want the others to kind of be around you, like somehow on you. In terms of getting rid of the background around yourself, there's a couple different ways to do it. One of them is this magic wand tool, which you can turn up the tolerance if you want it to take more, but you can kind of click and hit delete, and it selects everything that's the same color. Now, obviously, this polar bear is pretty easy to do that because he's got this perfect white background and this perfect black line around him. None of you will have that, especially if you have like frizzy hair like I do. That's when things become hard. I'm going to show you how this works on an image that's a little bit different. So let's say I want to select, this section of the eyes. Well, if I click here, ooh, that actually did a pretty decent job, I have to say. It found the things that were close to that color without being exact, and then I can hit backspace, and you can see there's a little bit of cleanup that needs to happen. We have to do select, deselect in order to get rid of that dotted line. So you can see there's a little bit that needs to be taken care of manually. Whoa, that's way too big. There we go. I can kind of go in with a brush there and get rid of it. But not bad, right? And then you would do the next part. You go get the magic wand and you'd click here. We make sure, it's not going too far. It's also not going far enough, but that's okay. You can always kind of click. There we go. Get rid of that. Whoa, see, too much. That's going to be getting rid of too much now. So if I wanted to take this light part, but not anything else, I didn't mean to click on that. I can turn this number down. There we go. See? Now it only takes stuff that's closer. And one of the bigger parts of this assignment is trying to do as good a job as you can. Whoops. Of getting rid of stuff. If the brush is being kind of weird and taking off too much, you can turn the hardness up so it'll be a little more precise. There we go. But you want to kind of clean up the edges around you and not have so much white backdrop there. Get as clean a line as possible. I do understand that you guys aren't shooting in the best of circumstances, so I'm not going to be looking for a perfect composite. The other part of this is, of course, what you do with the stuff on top of you and making sure, it's excised from its background properly. But one thing I will say is that if you go to, say, openclipart.org, which is all public domain, a lot of the things will actually be on a clear background already. And I not only allow for you to find things already on a clear background, I encourage it, because like 3/4 of the work that you do in the battle that you win can be finding the right materials to work with. This is the right material to work with because they already did the work for you. It's kind of like doing it right the first time makes your life easier later on. Now, if I wanted to get this little party horn out of the rest of these, I can use the lasso select tool, and it draws a select line wherever I draw, and then I go to the end to close it, and you can see right there. And so I can just copy that, go to my polar bear, paste it. It's gonna be huge because I shrunk the polar bear and it wasn't that big. So how do we change the size of it? Well, edit, free transform, and now I can kind of take this and shrink it way down and rotate. Nope. There we go. Rotate it around. Still too big. But we can start to, there we go. Hit enter to finish the free transform, and there you have it. 2 out of my 3 items plus a background. So this is what you want to do for your self-portrait. And most people started just with their self-portrait pictures, and that's what the size is that they worked with for the backdrops. Others changed it, but don't leave any of this dead space, right? Like I have right now. Use the crop tool, which is this one right here. And you can pull these markers in, and it should kind of snap to the edge of whatever your background is. Unless I turn snapping off. I did indeed. There we go. If you have snapping turned on, which you should, I turned it off for a different project. There we go. And I hit enter. Now it has made it the size of my background. So now it looks kind of polished and professional because I don't have all this weird stuff sitting around the edges. And again with this one, just hit File, Save, and then send me the PSD. It'll probably take a little bit to upload. As long as your file isn't 10,000 pixels by 10,000 pixels, that's okay. This file, for example, is... Nope. Nope. There we go. It's 10.8 megabytes. That's not extraordinary. That's okay. It's going to take a little bit to upload, but that's okay. And then I can see what you have, which is great. All right, so you don't need to flatten it. You don't need to do anything like that. And you just want to kind of have fun. Make yourself look however you want. Play with color. Play with tints. If you're really ambitious, play with adjustment layers. They're these things right here. They're really kind of awesome because you can make everything sepia toned. That's not sepia toned. There we go. Make everything like an old tiny photo if you want. It's not working because it's not above the whole thing. There it is, right? So you can, and adjustment layers are spectacular because if you don't like them, you just get rid of them and they don't do anything permanent. So have fun with this one, and yeah, submit to Blackboard when you're finished.